In 2002, director Mick Garris organized a dinner with some of the most influential horror directors ever. John Carpenter, Guillermo del Toro, John Landis, Tobe Hooper, just a couple of them. It was a total spur-of-the-moment thing, but apparently they had such a good time that it became a regular event, with more and more directors joining them like Eli Roth, Quentin Tarantino, and Rob Zombie. So 3 years later, Garris was creating and producing a horror anthology show for Showtime. He invited all of his dinner guests to direct a segment for themselves, and thus we have one of my favorite shows of all time, Masters of Horror. I should probably preface this by saying I didn't grow up watching undeniably good anthology series like Tales from the Crypt and Freddy's Nightmares. I was scared pretty easily as a kid. I'm sure there were even episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark that were too much for me. But once I hit high school and I had a couple of friends show me the Halloween films, that changed a lot. And luckily, there was a TV show that was about that same time that gave me all the blood and guts that my angsty self needed. Masters of Horror ran for 2 seasons, from 2005 to 2007, and the premise was pretty simple. A group of noteworthy horror writers and directors would come up with a story and then tell it in an hour-long episode. And it told some of my favorite short stories that I think the horror genre has ever produced. And I think what I liked the most about it were the differences in content between the nature of each of the stories. Some of them were campy and fun, like We All Scream for Ice Cream, which has a deranged clown killing people with the power of mystical treats. Or there's Homecoming, which was directed by Joe Dante, the guy who made Gremlins. It's about dead soldiers returning home from the Iraq War and wanting to vote to end it.
Join us. We're looking for a few good men.
And if you wanted something a little bit darker, the stories could absolutely take an incredibly disturbing turn, like Dance of the Dead, where Robert Englund runs a bar whose main attraction is electrified zombies who are forced to dance around for the entertainment of the guests, or the twisted story and disturbing torture depictions of Takeshi Miike's imprint. Takeshi Miike, for those of you who don't know, is the most prolific, downright disturbing horror director out there. He's the guy behind Audition. And his stuff for this show was actually so gruesome, it was banned in America. Garris actually called this the most disturbing film he's ever seen, and I can't argue with him at all.
Have I got your attention, mister?
Now, not every episode was a guaranteed masterpiece, and even some of my favorite directors put out films that were just okay at best, but that's the point of anthologies. You get different directors to put out new stories, and it's going to be hit or miss. But I really did love a majority of the stories, so much that I got the entire first season on DVD and a lot of loose ones from the second. My friends can attest, I have a tendency to go on spending sprees with movies when I'm drinking, and I have access to eBay from my phone, so I found this thing for $20. I love the thing that it's kind of shaped like a little mausoleum. Then again, I'm very easily amused. Going through this show and trying to pick out my favorites is undeniably hard, but it is not impossible, so I've been thinking about this for a while, so for now I'd like to give you my 10 favorite entries in Masters of Horror. Number 10 is Jennifer. A disfigured woman is saved from being murdered by a policeman who starts to care for her, but after a while she begins to become incredibly violent and the policeman has his life destroyed in covering up for her. It's incredibly gory and twisted, with a feeling throughout the movie that nothing will ever be alright for anybody on screen. Number 9, the Screwfly Solution. A disease spreads across every male on the face of the earth, replacing all of their lust and sexual urges with homicidal rage and sheer disdain for every female. It's not the best story in execution, but in theory, it's one of the creepiest premises for a horror film I've ever heard in my life. Just the scene in the strip club is worth it.
If I come to the house before you leave, if I try to follow you, I want you to shoot me.
Number 8, Right to Die. A man's wife is horribly burned in a car accident. When she slips in and out of consciousness, her spirit haunts him, telling him to keep her alive. It's got some of the most insane visuals and graphic body horror scenes that I've ever seen, and all with an insane sense of humor tying it all together. Number 7, The Washingtonians. Like I said, some of these are absolutely batshit crazy, and this is probably the best example. A man discovers a note from George Washington indicating that he is actually a bloodthirsty cannibal. and in trying to reveal his secret to the world, he's stalked by a cult that dresses up like the Founding Fathers and engages in cannibalism themselves. It's probably the funniest premise and movie in the entire series.
Eat me, you sons of bitches!
Don't worry, we will.
Number 6, Family. George Wendt, you know, that happy, friendly guy from Cheers? He kills people and dissolves their body into skeletons who he then props up as members of his own family. The film seems to jump a lot between his psychotic mind and the real world without a care for how crazy it becomes, but honestly, I wouldn't expect any more from my favorite director, John Landis.
Sorry, Mom. Be right back.
Number 5, The Fair-Haired Child. A couple abducts a young girl to sacrifice in order to get their own child back from a demon, but it turns out that she's the last in a long line of kids that were taken in order to bring him back from the dead, and he develops a pretty strong connection with her before he's forced to kill her. It has one of the better endings of the series, and Tank Girl is pretty ruthless in it. I know her name's Lori Petty, but to me, she'll always just be Tank Girl.
She's young,
Oh, so are the others.
but the others were boys.
What's done is done. We'll just deal with it.
Number 4 is Pelts. Okay, get this. Follow me on this and try not to get lost. Meatloaf stars as a man who runs a fashion boutique, and he makes a coat out of raccoon pelts in order to impress a prostitute. But the animals are cursed, causing everyone who works on the coat or wears it to be cursed as well. There is a lot of insane scenes in this one, including one where a guy full-on shoves his head into a bear trap. It's gory, disturbing, and pants-on-head stupid, but I love it.
Your skin is gone.
I made it for you. My work of art.
Number 3, Valerie on the Stairs. There's an apartment complex that is solely for up-and-coming writers, and eventually a character that the tenants created comes to life, as well as the monster she's written to belong to.
It's just you and me now. The hero and the beast.
It's dark, twisted, and it's made so much better by Tony Todd's depiction of the Beast and Christopher Lloyd just being Christopher Lloyd.
You need a fucking shrink.
No. I need a bestseller. Give me my ending and we'll all be happy.
Both of my favorite films from this series were directed by John Carpenter. Not to hold a bias, I just really love the stories. Number 2 is ProLife. A woman goes into an abortion clinic demanding that they kill the baby because the father is the devil. Now, her father is a staunch ultraviolet conservative who plans on murdering everyone inside and rescuing his daughter. It gets a little convoluted at times, but I find the girl's character is a lot better than most horror leads, and the scenes with her trying to cope with the pregnancy are pretty chilling.
Can't do it now. You're in labor. You die or the baby or both.
Oh God!
Angelique! No!
You help me!
Angelique!
Help me!
Ron Perlman is also downright terrifying as the self-righteous father who believes he's killing in the name of God, when in all honesty it might be someone else in his ear.
Protect the baby. It was you.
And my favorite Masters of Horror episode is Cigarette Burns. This could actually be my favorite short film ever. Norman Reedus and Udo Kier star, and the whole film is just dripping with tension and amazing visuals. It's about a search for a rare film called The Absolute End of the World that was apparently so evil that it caused a homicidal riot the night of its premiere.
I'm not about to drag you up here in the middle of the night for something that made a schoolgirl dizzy. I'm talking about real power.
Reedus' character is charged with finding a print of the film, and on his way, he discovers a trail of death, madness, and pure evil that it's left in its wake.
Once you start this, you can't just shake it off and walk away. It gets inside you.
It has superb acting, incredibly disturbing twists and turns, and this scene of Udo Kier feeding his own intestines into a movie projector.
I made my own movie.
Because you needed to see that. And this is also pre-Daryl Dixon Norman Reedus, so he really gives it his all. I think it might be the best acting he's ever done in his entire career.
I love you. I'm sorry.
Now, the show was canceled after its second season, but Garris was looking to continue the series because, Seriously, why wouldn't you? He found a home on NBC where he didn't really have any involvement or creative control, at least not as deeply as he had on the Showtime series. The new episodes were released under the series title Fear Itself, and while the content was toned down slightly to fit network standards, some of the stories were still incredibly well told. Like the episode Family Man that features Romeo from Boondock Saints 2. That might be one of my favorite TV episodes ever.
She can't hear you, bro. You're dead. You both are.
However, the show got put on hiatus while NBC aired the Winter Olympics, and it was promised to come back when it was all over, but it never did. That was pretty much it. All the episodes that didn't air were available on DVD, so nothing was lost, thankfully, but I would have loved to see this show continue in any way. Masters of Horror was important to me as a young fan because it increased my interest in horror movies by introducing me to a huge group of influential directors at once. I was only 16 or 17 when I first saw this, so for the first time, I was hearing a lot about these people, despite their huge catalogs of work. This was my first exposure to Stuart Gordon, who made Reanimator. It was my first exposure to Dario Argento, who made Suspiria. And it was my first real introduction to every single foreign director I could ever hope to get my hands on. And this was the first time I'd ever heard of Mick Garris himself, who I now have a huge appreciation for. And you can see a lot of his interviews with horror legends and creators on YouTube, which show just how much he cares about the medium. They're all good for a watch. I really recommend them. I credit this show with helping transform me into a true horror fan, and the stories still hold up today. It's right there with Tales of the Crypt in the sense that you can look back on old episodes and watch them, and still appreciate them for how well they were written, directed, and acted. So I am begging you, track down a copy of the show. I got the entire first season for like $20, and the second season is in this cool skull collection that I can't find anywhere. But I implore you, check it out and enjoy some of the best short stories you can possibly fit into a 1-hour TV show. Once again, I want to thank you guys for checking out all my videos this month. The metal reviews will be back on track towards the middle of November. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Remember to follow us on Facebook. Check out my radio show as well as the accompanying podcast run by our friends Dan and Chris in Texas. And I'll see you guys next time. Ma'am, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Who the hell are you?
Name's Pat. Housewares.
I'll swallow your soul!
Come get some. Happy Halloween, everybody. Ah!